Good morning, everybody. This is Burke Lyle here recording, and it is a Thursday, February 27th, and we're recording outdoors. This is from Athens, Georgia, and here I am today. I am coming to talk to you all about Major League Baseball as we are in spring training. Games have been going on for a week. But this story, this broke on Tuesday afternoon. Luis Severino of the New York Yankees is having Tommy John surgery and is out for the season, will not pitch in 2020. Obviously, this is devastating news since Severino in 2017 and 18 was one of the best pitchers in all of Major League Baseball. Had over 200 strikeouts in each season. Looked like a Cy Young finalist in each season at times, especially first half of 2018 we thought was going to win the award. Then last year kind of had the lat and shoulder issues, which he ended up missing an injury in spring training that I thought would be maybe a month or two, turned into 6 months. And he missed pretty much all of 2019. We thought this would be his redemption year. This would be the year to be healthy. He'd slide in with James Paxton and Garrett Cole. And Severino and Cole would be one of the best 1-2 punches in baseball, but that is not the case anymore. Since now Severino is out for the year, will not pitch this year, and now the question goes into 2021. So, in preparation for this, I read 3 articles. I read from Dave Schoenfield of ESPN. He wrote about the injury. He appears on the Buster Only podcast regularly. That I read from Joel Sherman of the New York Post. Joel Sherman also appears on MLB Network. And finally, the last thing I did is I read from Lindsay Alder of The Athletic, and then at the end of the show, we will give you the Yankees rotation, potential rotation, and we will compare it to the rest of the AL East in terms of potential rotation. And we will decide where the Yankees rank. So, Dave Schoenfield of ESPN, this is his article. How much will the Yankees miss Severino? Not as much as you think. And that's a good point. Since last year they won 103 games, and the rotation ERA was 4.51, which I remember last July, people were talking about, the rotation was one of the worst in all of Major League Baseball. At times, that's how bad it looked towards the end of July, going into the trade deadline. And remember, they won 103 games last year. Since, remember, James Paxton missed time already last year. And to go along with that, Luis Severino, as I said at the top of that show, he did not even pitch all year until September, till when it was virtually all but over. And that was the rotation last year. They still managed to win 103 games, and even. And this may come into effect this year, especially if they have a starter. Since, again, think about their current rotation, somebody's going to go down. Somebody's going to go down. It is very rare where you have 5 starters make a combined 150 starts. It just doesn't happen that much. Since, again, one starter or another is going to spend some time or another on the DL, whether it's 10, 15 days, a few weeks, whether it's a few months or most of the year. You don't know that, but this Yankees team won 103 games, so that is the part that gets to me most when the article, not as much as you think. Sure, it's a devastating injury. I mean, maybe this counts more in the come playoff time. Because again, last year in the playoffs, the Yankees did not have the starting pitching to really to defeat the Astros. I mean, the Astros won in 6 hard-fought games. But again, so that's when it may come into effect. When you play against somebody like in the ALCS, the Houston Astros team again, or whatever, or even in the World Series if you face a team with elite starting pitching, like if they would have faced the Washington Nationals. They will not have the starting pitching advantage, so maybe that really comes into play, and not having somebody like a Severino. Maybe you could get away with it in the regular season when you could hit a bunch of home runs and still score runs. Now, the question is, how does this affect the Yankees in the playoffs? Since, again, yes, you took Garrett Cole away from the Houston Astros, but Garrett Cole had Justin Verlander in the rotation as well. Now, Luis Severino, you don't have that anymore. So that's the thing. what's going on and how surprised am I? But let's be honest, I had thoughts of Severino getting Tommy John surgery for at least a couple of years. I thought that, he throws 100, throws a slider a lot. That puts a lot of stress on your arm, I'm guessing. But at the end of the day, this is not surprising. And about a week ago, I heard reports of sore elbow, and I was figuring, will this lead to Tommy John? And it turns out it did, based on the MRI. And not only that, in other news, Schoenfield also points out Domingo Germán, who won 19 games last year, it will still be suspended until June. He will be serving a suspension that kicked in last year's 81 game suspension. So that is kind of what we've heard from Schoenfield and my takeaways from that article. So now we'll move on to Joel Sherman of the New York Post. Also appears on MLB Network as well. So, and that article is kind of interesting. The part that I got to the earliest in the article, it talked about kind of the Yankees, how they basically changed their medical staff they made changes to maybe try to prevent all the injuries that they had last year. I mean, they had so many. It's unbelievable, like the injury, and almost all baseball injuries, especially if you're a pitcher, with your arm, are I guess it's hard to say a pitcher, kind of non-contact injuries. But Paxton and Severino both had injuries in the offseason, and the time of their surgery took place really during spring training. Could they have fixed the problem early? Like if you discovered, in mid-December Severino needs Tommy John, then maybe that's the difference between pitching all of 2021 and two-thirds of 2021. I don't know. And with Paxton, maybe that's the difference between missing until May and being ready at the start of the season. I don't know. But both of them had injuries, and it seemed like the medical staff, when they made changes, was put in place to make sure maybe these things don't happen. So again, it was a good article written by Sherman of the Post, kind of similar to Schoenfield, kind of explaining what happened, going over rotation options. And look, and the title was Yankees swimming with sharks again after Severino crisis. So again, in terms of dealing with the injuries, it appears they're getting criticized for this. It appears that Sherman might be critical if you say swimming with sharks. So if you use that analogy, if you swim with sharks, I feel like that could be very dangerous. And if there's any sight of blood whatsoever, that could even spiral the effect even further. So again, good headline. I like the headline from Sherman, kind of explaining the injury. So now, that's my takeaway from Sherman. So now it is time for Lindsay Alder from The Athletic, one of the Yankees beat reporters. So again, kind of a good article in kind of order what happened. So my takeaways from the article. So this is Severino. So again, he was building a routine in the offseason, and it appeared that he increased his throwing as it got closer and closer to spring training. So I guess it depends on the starting pitcher for sure. Like I just heard about a week ago or so that Max Scherzer throws 50 pitch bullpens at intensity, right? So in early spring training. So again, started throwing, and then sometime, and this is Severino, felt forearm tightness during last year's playoffs. And the strange thing about it is when he was feeling the tightness, it only really went into effect when he was throwing the changeup, which is kind of interesting. So you're throwing the fastball, the slider, and his changeup. I mean, again, looking at the percentages, looking at the analytics from the past couple years, the changeup is his third most common pitch used. So again, if you only felt something while throwing the changeup, then I guess you could say, I'll just rely on fastball, slider, okay, during the playoffs. But that was kind of strange. It was kind of a strange thing. And again, I read about this in the Schoenfield article, going back to this. So you have multiple MRIs, and apparently, and I believe this was also mentioned in the Sherman article as well, so you have multiple MRIs. So apparently some MRIs are stronger than others. Okay, I will take that, but then again, you didn't find anything. You didn't find anything, right? So now what do you do then? Right? So again, with all the tightness, and then so did pitching through this injury in the playoffs make it worse? Apparently not. I don't think so. Since then, obviously the Yankees were eliminated on October 19th, and you found out that he had Tommy John surgery. He last pitched on October 15th, I believe was his last start he made. Game 3 of the ALCS. So then it has come to known that you have Tommy John surgery scheduled. It's probably going to happen sometime right around March 1st. So with that in mind, that is over 4 months of rest right then and there between really being on the mound or not. So those are the off-season MRIs, and you don't really find anything yet. But then you have an MRI reveals a torn UCL, which again, and more times than not, that means Tommy John. Like the UCL, which that is an elbow ligament, and I think that is the most critical ligament when you're a pitcher. And again, not all the time a torn UCL means surgery. I mean, reading forward again with the Masahiro Tanaka, he had a partially torn UCL in 2014 and has basically pitched with it ever since then. So again, at any point in time, yes, the UCL could completely tear. So again, I guess it really depends how long you can really deal with something like that. But again, you can always you can get the surgery and whatever had happened, and so you get the surgery now, and then that's over here. But again, other pitchers have opted for stem cell things. I think Garrett Richard tried that. Obviously didn't work. I think he eventually ended up getting the official Tommy John surgery later on in the process. So maybe pitchers are trying new things. So again, Tommy John, it can be like Zach Wheeler, for example, got Tommy John surgery at the start of the 2015 season, basically missed the 15 and the 16 season, since granted, setbacks can happen and it can cost you 2 full seasons. So again, average return time, I don't know. I think generally it takes about a year to come back from Tommy John surgery, usually from when you get it to when you come back. That seems about right. In some cases it might be a little bit less, but more often it's going to take more than a year than less than a year. So now, another takeaway is the Yankees might have mismanaged the injuries of Severino and Paxton. Since here's what happened. This is all from the Athletic article. Apparently treatment was opted instead of surgery, which maybe the injuries could have been less severe. Maybe if Severino said, okay, I have this elbow issue, let's go ahead and fix it right now before it turns into something bad like Tommy John surgery where it costs you a whole season, or James Paxton with the back. Okay, let's operate right now so you can be ready to go at the start of the season. But instead they went for treatment, and their injuries apparently got worse, not better, which leads me back to Joel Sherman of the New York Post when they're talking about the medical, kind of changing the medical staff and things like that. If you change medical staff and this happens again, so apparently whatever problem you're trying to fix apparently now only gets worse, and from there, right? Since now you have 2 pitchers who are going to miss a month or more, and then a year or more, right? So with that, so we know about the injury. So now the question is, did the Yankees mismanage the injury? Yes, they did, since they may have either underestimated the severity of the injury, or also, instead of trying to fix the injury right then and there, they tried these alternative methods, which clearly didn't work. Again, so yes. So now the question is, we're going to talk about this now. What is their rotation, since it seems like the back of the rotation will be inexperienced players with little to no starting pitching experience at the MLB level. So again, the starting rotation, which again, over the last year or so, it has been a question mark at times. And talking over at earlier in the show, I think with the starting pitching, I think it let them down in last year's playoffs. They didn't really have a complete rotation to compete with the Houston Astros, or if they were in the World Series, to compete with a Washington Nationals type rotation. So again, that was their ultimate weakness, and again, this is a weakness again. So this is their, I believe, to be their current starting rotation, based on depth charts and mention from in reading in articles from their beat writers. So again, Garrett Cole is obviously number one. He is the ace. We have known that for weeks now, ever since he signed with the Yankees. That is your ace. That is somebody who we've seen the last 2 years in Houston, Cy Young finalist. Then you have Masahiro Tanaka. Again, he was originally supposed to be a 4-star. Now he's a 2-star. And again, Paxton will be back probably in early May. So whatever problem. So again, I think the rotation will be more stable. And as we know, we are not going to see Severino this year. But again, Tanaka, we know he's injury prone. We know he can get hurt. He could get hurt any time now. You could potentially have elbow issues with him. J.A. Happ struggled for most of 2019, picked up the pace in September, really performed better in September, was a reliable starter in September. But again, this is your 3-starter. He's in his late 30s. Could have been a 5-starter, or maybe it not even been part of the rotation. And now your 4-starter, Jordan Montgomery, again had Tommy John surgery. This affected him in 2018 and 2019. So again, you have someone who hasn't pitched really a full productive major league season since 2017. And then question mark, Jonathan Loaizaga, who again has started games the last couple of years, has looked good at times, has potential to be a solid major league starter, but himself is very injury prone, has had a lot of injuries really throughout his entire professional career. You have Clark Schmidt, who again also had Tommy John surgery, was drafted by the Yankees in 2017. So again, has obviously very little experience. And you have Deivi Garcia, who's a prospect who really emerged last year. Obviously throws a hard fastball close to 100 miles per hour. So it seems like has potential to be a very good MLB starter at the top of the rotation. But again, was in high A and then got the triple A. So again, is he ready or not? I don't know. So those are kind of your 5th starter options. And really when Paxton comes back, you basically have 3 players fighting for potential 4 and 5 spots. And again, some of these pitchers I'm talking about will probably spend a fair amount of time pitching either A, in the bullpen, or B, potentially in AAA this year. So again, now that is the Yankees rotation. So how would I compare? And this is my opinion to the rest of the rotation. So first up, we'll do the Tampa Bay Rays. Blake Snell won the Cy Young Award in 2018. Tyler Glasnow, when he was on the mound last year, performed very well. Had a lot of injuries, but he has a lot of potential. Then you have Charlie Morton, who again was obviously for year in and year out last year was the Rays' most reliable starter the entire year. Has been reliable in Houston since 2017. So that is your top 3 right then and there. And then you have Yanni Chirinos, who, again, in and out of the starting rotation. Ryan Yarbrough, Brandon McKay, who has potential. So those are your potential 5 starters. The Rays, as of right now, have always used the opener the last 2 years, even using the playoffs. The question is, do they use it again at the start of this year? I bet they do use it some, but right now there's less need for it. So again, you're comparing that. Obviously, Garrett Cole has an advantage over any starter in the Rays rotation, but go down the rest of the list. I'd rather have Tyler Glasnow than Tanaka, absolutely. I'd rather have Charlie Morton than J. Happ or Tanaka or any of them. So now, what I say, the advantage goes to the Rays, since again, starting pitching at before then, again, they started the whole opener concept in 2018. But yes, what it looks like they might be moving slightly away from it. I don't know for sure, but again, will they use it? I bet they will use it this year. But in terms of pure starting rotation, advantage Rays over the Yankees. That doesn't even seem that close at all. Red Sox, they obviously traded David Price in the Mookie Betts deal. Chris Sale, he has injury concerns for sure. You know, he was pretty lucky to avoid Tommy John surgery last year. Eduardo Rodriguez, sure, he won a lot of games this year, but how reliable is he as a major league starter? Nathan Eovaldi hurt a lot last year. Martin Perez on the Twins looked like a good story for a few months, but then really struggled down the stretch. Again, this is your fourth starter now opener. So again, Red Sox or Yankees, who has the advantage? I'd take Cole over Sale right now, and then the rest of the rotation, who knows? I'm sure the Yankees would love to have Eduardo Rodriguez. I think it is close. It is hard to say. I do not know. But as of right now, I am going to go slightly... I guess I will go with the Yankees. And there it's close, but it's going to go to the Yankees. And by the way, I wouldn't be surprised if the Yankees did the opener, especially early in the season. They did it plenty last year. Alright, now the Blue Jays, they add Hyunjin Ryu from the Dodgers, and they add Tanner Roark, so they have made upgrades. Two reliable major league starting pitchers who have been reliable starters on playoff teams. Roark, all those years on the Nationals and on the A's last year. And then you had Ryu from all those years on the Dodgers and won the National League ERA title. So then you have Chase Anderson, who's been on the Brewers, has been okay at times. And then Matt Shoemaker, again, former Angel. Again, have had productive seasons at times, but again, they're filled in just to kind of eat innings right now. I don't think they're really a permanent part of the team. And then you have Sean Yamaguchi, who came in from Japan, who is a fifth starter, so we don't know what he is yet. So again, obviously Ryu, Roark. So 1-2, I think I'd still give it to the Yankees right there, and then the rest of the rotation. Again, veterans who don't know what they are. I think the Blue Jays are still kind of rebuilding. In terms of offense, they could be close there, and they have a lot of potential for the future. I mean, again, we talk about playoff expansion. I think the Blue Jays will be a type of team that benefits from playoff expansion when the time comes. And the question is, can they make it to the playoffs this year? Probably not. But will they make it to the playoffs when the time of expansion comes? Who knows? But again, as of right now, I'm going to give the advantage to the Yankees. And then you have the Orioles. John Means made it to the All-Star game last year. Alex Cobb has been there the last 2 years, has really struggled during most of his time in Baltimore. Cole Stewart, former Twins, high draft pick, really struggled there. Asher Wojciechowski, not related to the NBA insider Adrian. Kind of a long reliever type guy. Wade LeBlanc. So again, Yankees, advantage goes to the Yankees. So, ranking the rotations, if I had to say, Rays are number 1. They're the best rotation in the AL East. Red Sox, I think they'd be 3. Blue Jays 4. Orioles 5. So I'm going to say the Yankees are either 2 or 3. So kind of in the middle. So in terms of the division, the Yankees are going to win the division. There's no question about that. They are going to win the division. The Rays, I think, will be a very good team this year. They won 95 games last year. And that was with Blake Snell and Glasnow missing much of the year and not really having a reliable starting rotation. So if they have a healthy rotation, they could win close to 100 games and still not win the division. Right, and obviously going at the top of the article back in the beginning with David Schoenfield, the Yankees won 103 games when Severino missed 5 months. Really 6 months if you count what happened in spring trading. So you have that factor. But the Yankees are winning the division. The Rays would probably be somewhere second. The Red Sox are taking a step back. So that'll be interesting to see there. And they're going to be fine. But when the season starts, what will the rotation look like? And does this potentially open the door for the Rays, especially early in the year? And by the way, there's news again. Giancarlo Stanton may have to start the season on the DL. Had I believe it was a calf strain right now. And opening day is a month away. So if it takes this long for Giancarlo to come back, the Yankees lineup is once again slightly short-handed. So there's another injury right there. So the question is, how do the Yankees survive the early season out of the gate? So again, if we come on and talk in April, will we be talking about the struggles of the Yankees rotation or not. I mean, is that going to be a topic? And I think it probably will. I think it will be a topic. And again, I talked about this earlier in the show. Come playoff time, assuming Cole stays healthy and is a Cy Young finalist, and then you have James Paxton, and you have a Tanaka in there, and maybe some of those fifth starters I was talking about, someone like Jordan Montgomery really steps up and is a very reliable four-starter, or anybody else that is auditioning for the 5 spot emerges this year. And can the Yankees have a reliable starting rotation in the playoffs? Since, again, we know they have a really good bullpen. But based on what happened in last year's ALCS and what you saw in the World Series with the Astros and the Nationals, you need starting pitching to win the World Series. And again, do the Yankees have good enough starting pitching to get through October and win a World Series? And that, once again, is a question mark. So it'll be interesting to see. So again, as of right now, spring training games are back. I'll be watching spring training at times this week. In terms of other news in sports, the NFL Combine's going on. I may make an episode soon. I might do an NFL episode really either possibly later today, probably not, but certainly I'll try to get something in tomorrow and kind of talk about maybe some potential NFL news going on right now. And 6 more weeks until the Stanley Cup playoffs start. Obviously, the Capitals trying to win another championship in Washington, D.C. And 4 weeks from today, the Nationals, the defending World Series champions, will have opening day. So that's what's going on right now in sports. Thank you for listening. This is Burke Lyle, and we will see you next time.